Good morning, Gael. Nice to see you again.
Yes, hi. Yes, nice to see you.
So we have another chance to continue the conversation we started before in January, and so yeah, and so we have another opportunity
Can,
to go further
yeah,
today.
I'd like I'd like to interject too. What a different backdrop. So
Yes,
we had a conversation in January and now we re-meet and my goodness, what has shifted and what does that do
yeah,
to this conversation? So
yeah.
I feel like we have to include that. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yes, yes, yes. So just on that level, how have you been doing with this new situation in your relationship to your own continuum, but your larger, practice or your larger way of being,
Sure.
your soma and your psyche,
Right.
everything. Yeah.
Right. So I have been uh, very well and really enjoying the re-regulation of our culture. It feels like I've been longing for this for a long time.
Mhm.
And I am also acutely aware of the vulnerability that tragedy could come close in anytime. So it makes it very poignant right now. And also that sense of mortality being very present also makes things very acutely poignant.
Yeah.
But to relate it to Emily and her teachings and her vision,
Mhm.
I feel like she prepared us so well for this time,
Yeah.
and she really did have a vision.
Yeah.
And it was in her autobiography as a child, seeing these Robotons spit out of the subway cars and, in their gray worlds, marching off to a soulless job and coming back depleted.
Mhm.
And, I really felt like she saw well ahead of time that as much as we love and need our technology, and it's become all the more important right now, and not to make it go away, but there's another aspect which has been sucking the soul dry
Mhm.
in our culture for decades
Yeah.
now.
Yeah.
And the fact that that was embedded into her teachings, and there were those of us that felt the thirst
Mhm.
to save the soul, our souls, and whatever we could do collectively. I feel like, yes, this is what we've been doing. And if I were to bring it to the nugget,
Mhm.
and I feel like this is a nugget that is so precious in the midst of so many valuable meditations that are going on worldwide, meditative spiritual practices all over the place,
Yeah.
not to put any of them down, but the cornerstone of our particular meditation is we don't know.
Mhm.
We don't know. We don't know. There's nature forces bigger than our intelligence. We don't know. And what's coming next? We don't know.
Yeah.
And so I feel like um, the I'm in touch with a lot of people who haven't had a practice like this, and there is much more floundering with that, with the I mean, learning how to tolerate the unknown is difficult.
Yeah.
And every single dive is another practice into can I tolerate the unknown for 40 minutes, for an hour? And so, as we have gone through this practice and we have figured out not how to have control over it and not how to just pattern it into a practice, it's what has been developed in all of us, and it's what is saving my sanity while it's making some other people around me very fearful and
Yeah,
very restless and scared.
yeah, yeah, yes, absolutely. And with you talked about nature, and I have the feeling that we are learning to actually ride this wave that nature is, and then it becomes it's the unknown, but it's also full of sensations and full of pleasure, or full of actually really nice things to experience.
Yes, yes. And that's also not, that takes a while to develop.
Yeah,
To have that feeling that our animal body is riding on with nature and that it's not a tsunami of destruction only.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
And you talked also about Emily's vision, and that actually something I wanted to ask you and to talk about. And she had, I think she talks about that in her book Life on Land, about the kind of an updated version of the human being being on the way to not to be made, but I guess to be burst, or to go out of the cocoon, or something of this order. I'm not sure. So I don't know if if you have more things to talk about that. I have the feeling that the moment we are in is a particular moment where we there is an opening somehow, uh, of that kind of phenomenon, like trying, being able to move out of something that's known, and something that was, a reality that we created for hundreds of years or something, and that there is something that really happening, and that is new, and that we don't know.
I agree. And I see it in a couple of layers,
Hmm.
from kind of closer into me personal to global.
Yeah.
Um, to speak at the global level, actually, I have to preface this first because one of the things I'm finding so interesting in my mantra of we don't know is that I have been having a vacation from a certain kind of neurotic patterning in myself. Having been constantly planning, trying to feel into the future, trying to predict, um, and I find myself in the crack between I'm not optimistic, I'm not pessimistic because I don't know.
Hmm.
And this is such an interesting, it's a relief for me, actually,
Hmm.
to feel that way. Or, oh, our finances are going to be ruined. Well, okay, maybe, but I'm not in the fear of it because it's back to, right, we'll see, I don't know. So, so I, as I speak about the global, I am having a feeling about it and not necessarily optimism,
Hmm.
but uh, I am noticing the dissolve of national borders and territorialism as we start to notice how we need to cooperate with each other.
Right.
And the information is really important internationally.
Yeah.
And for example, the UN just for the first time called a worldwide ceasefire.
Hmm.
With the logic of refugee camps are not good for the health
Yeah.
of all of us.
Yeah.
I mean, this is a new way to think.
Right.
And I can only hope that we get the habit of this and we come out of this thinking if we can cooperate with this, could we cooperate with pollution? Could we, so I guess there is a kind of a hope in it about that at the global level. Um, and at the more personal level, we have been practicing first in classes where we were all face to face. We were practicing and speaking to each other for decades, not really knowing how to put words to the idea that there's something that we're creating in the field.
Yeah.
And we can feel the potency of it. We don't know how to name it. We don't know why it's happening. It just is something there that feels beneficial to all of us.
Yeah.
And, and then, but perforce, we have gone to Zoom or telephone and classes online. And even though, and Emily started this shortly before she died, she started reaching out this way.
Yeah.
And she said there is this evolutionary imperative to extend the borders of our ability to communicate across space.
Yeah.
And so we have been prepared in a certain way in that direction as well. And even though this is not my medium of choice to do it this way, it's definitely working.
Yeah.
And I think we are having to lean into it, and something is growing in for that reason. And even though this is not my medium, how I have been using my free time is to be in communication with different colleagues. And we just set up our own co-created virtual dive together. Mm-hmm. And I am learning something I wouldn't learn all by myself. And there's a concentration, a potency to the dive that I create. And it's been very interesting to me because there's a transmission that each one of us carries very particularly. Mm-hmm. And I wouldn't be able to name it teacher by teacher, but when I do a virtual with another teacher, I get a transmission particular to being in the virtual with that person. It's got a quality to it. I get interested outside of my own typical range of interest. Yeah. And so I just am finding that really fascinating.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Great. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot to talk about and explore, and it's so much of a momentum somehow for our practice in a way to bloom in this time. And I agree with you that what's happening now on the global level also happens actually more with Zoom or with virtual or with technology. Something is happening also that brings everyone into a position to be actually collectively connected, but also you're alone. You're alone in this. Yeah. In this particular. So the sense of authority or sovereignty that Emily was talking about is also very present. Like what kind of choice do you have? You can choose to watch TV the whole day, or you can really take a step into your own field and extend it to the larger field. So.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, you're right. It's interesting what you're bringing up, because there is a sense of connecting and with gratitude to a larger field, and then sort of disappearing inside of yourself in a way that is not getting socially gratified by the typical our typical needs for attention.
Yeah.
So that's an interesting polarity right there, to be a nobody in your house.
Yeah.
Yeah. While this other thing is going on.
Yeah.
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 Well, in a way, also, I remember this very often. Emily was talking about the prisoner being in the in the prison with a door open, but staying there. So now we are kind of in a situation like that. But the creativity of and technology, and I guess the extension of what's actually emerging from, I guess, the bigger picture, because this is so big. It's such a small,
Yeah.
it's such a small little, it's such, what I find so interesting with this situation is like almost like a little grain brought a different sound into the whole orchestra, but everything is out of tune now, and until it finds again kind of orchestration.
Huh. Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting because it is like that. It's like the systems are failing, and and there's nobody quite to blame, and so there's all of that chaos going on. And at the same time, I feel like there is this incubation going on.
Right.
There's a silence. It's like an open attention.
Yeah.
That humanity is being forced into, that we just don't get to rush around and distract ourselves with our usual manners of doing that. And I do think that it does put people right up against themselves. If you're going to feel uh, trapped or bored or useless or whatever, that's going to come up. And and then again, I think those of us who have developed channels other than the usual cultural norms for value are having an easier time in general. Just, oh, okay. And it doesn't mean hard things aren't going to come up, for all of us. Griefs and all kinds of things. But sort of the willingness of, okay, this is my next inquiry.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.